All right, today we're going to dive into a book that makes this fascinating, almost paradoxical claim about itself. It's a book about these huge ideas, mathematics, music, consciousness, but it's also, you can't escape it, a book about the book itself.
So, let's start with a little puzzle. What if an argument didn't need evidence from the outside world? What if the argument was the evidence? Seriously, imagine a book that proves its main point is true just because you're holding it and reading it. That is the wild intellectual knot we're going to try and untangle today.
To get our heads around this, we first need a concept. It comes from the brilliant cognitive scientist Douglas Hofstadter, and he called it a strange loop. And at its heart, it's a system that somehow loops right back on itself.
So what is a strange loop? Well, imagine you're following a system up through its layers, getting more and more complex, and then, poof, you surprisingly end up right back where you started. Think of that famous drawing by M.C. Escher, the one with two hands, where each hand is drawing the other one. Which one came first? You can't say. It's a perfect loop. You see it in Gödel's mind-bending math theorems and in Bach's music that seems to rise forever. It's just a beautiful, mind-bending idea.
And this brings us right to the core claim. The book we're talking about today just comes right out and says it. It is one of these things. It's not just about strange loops. It claims it is a strange loop.
So, how on earth does it prove that? Well, the argument isn't just something written on the page. The argument is the page. The proof is baked into its very construction.
The book actually uses the very tricks it's describing. For instance, in one chapter, it argues that all models are basically useful fictions. Simplified versions of reality. Like when a physicist imagines a perfectly spherical cow to make a problem easier. Well, at the very same time, the book's own structure, these 8 neat, tidy chapters, is a simplified model of a messy, complex history of ideas. It's a useful fiction explaining useful fictions.
And it doesn't stop there. It does the same thing with personification. It explains how we talk about the invisible hand of the market as if it's a person with intentions. And then, in the same breath, the book itself says things like, the ledger wants this, or the book argues that, treating these abstract ideas as if they're alive. It's performing the exact thing it's analyzing right in front of us.
The book pulls a similar move when it talks about measurement. It explains how a financial ledger is this kind of fiction that lets us compare totally different things, like a building and a patent, by slapping a number on them. And then what does it do? At the end of its own chapters, it has these assessment rubrics that do the same thing. They assign a numerical score to something as abstract and frankly unmeasurable as a student's understanding.
So you see what's happening here, right? This is the crucial point. The book doesn't just tell you its thesis, it acts it out. The entire thing is a live demonstration of the ideas inside it. The medium really is the message, quite literally. Okay, so this leads us into this really weird logical territory, something the author calls the performative paradox. And it's basically this: a statement that, just by being said and believed, actually makes itself true.
Let's just walk through the logic of this loop step by step. Okay, step 1. The book's big idea is that useful fictions create real effects in the world. Step 2, to prove this, the book invents its own useful fiction, the very category of useful fiction. Step 3, it then shows how this new category is, well, super useful. It helps us connect all these different ideas and see the world in a new light. And here's the kicker, step 4. The very usefulness of the book's idea serves as the proof for its own thesis. It works because it works.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. Wait a minute, isn't that just a circular argument? A self-sealing theory that can't ever be proven wrong? And look, that is a totally fair question. How can we possibly trust an argument that uses itself as its own proof?
Well, the key here is to realize that not all circles are created equal. A vicious circle is an empty loop, right? It just confirms itself and never actually touches the real world. But a virtuous circle is different. Yeah, it uses itself as evidence, but it's for a claim that actually helps us make predictions or operate more effectively out there in the real world. And that leads us to the ultimate test. It's not about some abstract logical puzzle. It's all about the practical effect. The question is really simple. After you engage with this idea, do you actually see the world differently? Does this concept of a useful fiction help you notice things that you didn't notice before? If the answer is yes, well then it's a useful fiction, and the thesis holds up.
Because the real effect of this book, if it works, isn't just intellectual. It's about your perception. The author argues it creates what psychologists call a gestalt switch, a permanent change in how you see everything.
You know that famous optical illusion, right? The one where you can see either a young woman or an old woman in the same image. Before someone points it out, you only see one. But after you've seen both, you can never go back.
Your brain has been rewired. You can't unsee it. This book is trying to do that exact same thing for how you see the social world.
And once that switch flips, man, you start seeing these useful fictions everywhere. You realize money is just a collective agreement, a performance we all put on. You see that corporations are legal fictions, that the political spectrum is just a map, it's not the actual territory. You get that when someone says science says, they're often talking about a paradigm, a specific set of rules for a particular game. These things aren't fake. They're incredibly powerful, world-shaping fictions that we all live inside.
You know, the most powerful fictions are the ones we're just born into. We don't invent them. We just find ourselves already playing the game. The goal isn't to escape, because there is no escape. The goal is just to see the game for what it is. And as the book puts it so perfectly at the end, the game was always in progress. Now you can see the circle.